Hello and welcome to hobby vlog number 113, and as you can see we have a new person, a new little puppy. This is Xena. She is a very young stray who we found last night. Tried to find her mother, couldn't find her anywhere, so yeah, we've looked after her overnight. We'll probably go looking for her mother again. We're not sure how old she is, but she is very young. But if we can't find her mother, then she may end up being a new member of our family, which is a really nice way to start the year. And on that note, let me wish you all a very happy new year. I hope you had a wonderful New Year's Eve, all of you, and we certainly did. We had a great time, and I hope that 2022 treats all of you very, very well. It's been a very tough 2021 for a lot of people, so here's to 2022. Anyway, on with the vlog. I've been back to the hobby bench this week again, so there's a few more bits and pieces going on. I've been working mainly on the Battle Games in Middle Earth video, which will be out this coming Tuesday, but I have managed to get a few other projects on the go. And the only other thing to say now before we jump into that is watch out. If all goes to plan, this Friday a huge video is going to be dropping. Some of you may know what that's all about. Some of you may have seen some of the chatter already, but watch out for that. I'm very excited about it. A collaboration with some fantastic creators and some very good friends of mine. So yeah, keep your eyes open for that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments below. I reply to all of them. Let's get back and see what happened this week. So here we are. We have a key, an Allen key, and a coin. These are the items that you need to show before you start the build, just to prove you've not started too early, which I think is a really cool little thing. It's quite fun as well. And here we have what I'm going to be making. So this is the 20mm village church from Sarissa, which I made literally years ago, and it's just sat on my shelf. I've not used it, and it's not actually currently mounted to anything. And what I'm going to be doing as part of this build, I'm going to do two things. This is my tile, obviously, so that's the 10 by 20 that I'm going to use. But as part of this build, I need to have a backdrop for my photographs, and I'm going to work on finishing off, or actually starting really like working on the terrain, on the finishing of this church. So I'll do the roof and I'll render the walls. I'll stick it down to two 20 by 20 squares and scenic around it. And this is going to be a war cemetery, which is going to be part of the surroundings of the church. So the will it never end is we're going to have very old graves going to newer graves, and that's the plan. Whether I can fit that in and tell that story in 20 by 10 centimeters, I'm not sure, but that's what the aim is. So there we are. That's the plan. We're going to do it all together, and hopefully by the end of the month I'll have a really nice central terrain piece for chain of command, and I'll also have a nice entry for going into the encounter 10 by 10. So yeah, fingers crossed this will work out well. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at, funnily enough, not starting on the 10 by 20, I'm going to glue this to the base, because I think that's going to make it easier for me to work with. Everything else comes off. As you can see, the roofs come off and everything is fully playable inside. But I'm going to glue the main cruciform to these terrain pieces, make sure that's stuck down nicely. I'll just use PVA glue. And I'll also run a bead of PVA glue in that little gap so that the tiles are also glued together, and then that's going to be my first step. So I'll get that done, pop some weights in, leave it overnight, and while that's drying, then I'll make a start on that. So I'll bring you along when I'm going to make a start on the actual tile. I might have gone a bit over the top here. And I'll probably have lots of these left over, but that's cool because they're all the right size. So this is what I printed out for the cemetery. You can see that I've got quite a lot of very, very small gravestones. If you zoom right in, they're tiny. They're printed out really, really nicely, actually, to be honest. I'm very, very pleased with how they're printed. And I've done some more kind of like cenotaphy type buildings as well, markers as well. So they have just all been taken off of the supports. I'm now going to wait for them to dry, and then I'll cure them, and then I'll paint them up and put them onto the diorama, and I'll bring you along for that. But that's what I printed. It was yeah, probably went a little bit mad, as I say, but at least I've got lots and lots of options now, lots of different types of gravestone. I've got some damaged ones. I've got some, that's not one, that's a large squirrel. I've got crosses, I've got damaged ones, I've got whole ones. Yeah, so a really good variety, and it's going to be a really interesting little cemetery when I get these all cured up. So let's get that done. After my mistress Shroom completely and utterly blew me away and won me, or I drew because someone else, we tied, but I was voted for as the joint most popular entry, which just blows me away. Such an awesome community, some really great creators, and to even be able to watch what they do is amazing. They're so talented. I was able to pick a subject, and I picked the subject family because that's very important to me, as you all know. But I didn't actually have an idea what I was going to paint. And I found this. Which is actually a real sculpture, sculpture, that's the word, in Battersea Bridge apparently in London. And I just love it. So I printed it out. It took about 10 hours because it's quite big, as you can see, but it's absolutely fantastic. So I've now cured that. That's ready for painting. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go prime this. I'm going to paint just the cobblestones, and then what I'll do is I will very carefully cut off this surround. But for now, that surround is going to be really useful for me to hold to paint it. So I will prime the model and then paint it, and hopefully that will be a beautiful little thing to have on display, and also will be a really fun entry for the challenge. So yeah, really cool. This is one of the best things about having a 3D printer, is to be able to do things like this. I can't wait to see what it looks like. Here we are. I've finally finished painting this. It's been sat on my bench and I've been doing it in bits and bats, but then a couple of days ago I decided to just get it finished, so I've done it. It's very basic, very basic paint scheme. Normal flesh with a wash for the body of the man, and then I did a very thin watered down black red from Vallejo for the body, and then did golden yellow for the stripes, and then the actual saddle is another yellow, a different yellow, I can't remember exactly which one, with a very heavy Agrax wash over the top, and that looks exactly how I want it to. I'm very pleased with how that's come out. It's been a lot of fun painting that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stick that down using PVA into place. So that's just going to be stuck down there. I'm going to leave the base on, and then I'll leave that to dry, and once that's dried, then we'll be able to start working on the rest of the little diorama, which is quite exciting. As I say, this has been kind of in progress for quite a long time. So just a little smear of PVA on the bottom. You don't need too much, because I will be bedding this in with other scenic and terrain elements. Obviously I'm going to need to, because I don't want a dirty grey plastic thing going on underneath. So yeah, there we are. We'll glue that in place. That needs to come a little bit further forward. There we are. We'll glue it in place there. And yeah, let that dry, and then we'll come back and finish off the scenery around it. Very pleased to have got to this stage now. Okay, we're in the games room. This is where this has been sat for the past 2 weeks. Christmas has been a very slow time for me hobby-wise, which is perfect, because sometimes you need a break. And this is now very good, very dry, been left a long time. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start to glue down the elements. So we've got the tree, which I already showed you. I also printed out some other stuff. I will attempt to find and share the links for these, but they're just free items from Thingiverse. You can see, I think one of them might actually be one of my mates who did it, which is pretty cool. So I'll try to remember to share links for those files, but we've got more than this coming. So what I'll be doing is over the next couple of days, I'll be printing out more of these gravestone-y type things and building up building up the population of where the gravestones are going to be. But I'm only going to use PVA glue, so we will chuck PVA glue on the bottom of this, and that will hold it in place enough, and then I'll be coming along with some more modelling compound to bed everything in, as I think I've already said. So literally just sit that on there, and I'll come and build up the scenery around it when I'm ready to. So yeah, let's just set that in. When I've done everything, I'll come along and put some more modelling compound. So yeah, just a little bit of PVA on the bottom. I'm not entirely sure where everything's going to go, so I'll get that done, and I'll bring you back when I've got everything set up and we're about to start painting. In the same way as for my Dino Racer diorama, I want to leave some of the wood exposed. That's quite important to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw roughly where I'm going to leave exposed. I might actually bring that a little bit further forwards. like that. And I'm also going to leave exposed at the back here. And I've got this rock which I want to put as a counterpoint to that little lump there. So I might actually even do that and leave it exposed behind the rock as well, and then we can put the and then that can be like that. And what I'm going to do in that bit here, I'm not explaining very well, a bit tired, and I think I broke my toe today, so sorry I'm a little bit in pain. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue the stone down using the super strong glue that I like, and I'm going to put a thin skim of the modelling compound over the rest of this. Now if you remember, that I might need to come in and sand that before I put any modelling compound down, and then I might need to put a thin PVA layer before I put the modelling compound down so that it actually sticks, because if you remember that actually popped off. But this modelling compound is going to go over the top of the base as well, so that's going to cover up the grey base. So I'll get that done. I won't film this because it's exactly the same as you've already seen, so that'll be a bit repetitive, but once it's done I'll bring it back and show what it looks like. I think I am just going to come in here with a bit of a rough sand and sand down everywhere that's on the other side of the line so that it actually does stick. So I'll get the sandpaper, sand that down, make a very small mix of the modelling compound, glue that in place at the same time as putting the modelling compound in, and then it'll be a case of finishing off with the colours and the textures. So yeah, getting close on this now actually. I think it's going to rush to completion. So Quinn from Quinian's Budget Crafts did these two little sculpts, these two figures, and I printed them out big because I've got the idea for a fantastic little diorama which is going to be quite humorous, I hope. So I'm just going to paint them. I'm not going to film painting them, but I want to introduce the miniatures. We've got basically the Orbz meme that's been going around a lot, and maybe you can guess what the diorama is going to be. But I'm going to paint them up, and then I will introduce you to the diorama idea once they're painted and ready to be set into the scenery. So yeah, I'm pretty excited. They're really lovely. They printed out very, very nicely. I've made a few mistakes in cleaning them up, but they'll paint up perfectly fine. They're not for any competition or for what have you. If you're more talented at printing than I, you could get a really fantastic result. Can't recommend Quinn highly enough. He really is becoming such a fantastic sculptor. I love his stuff, and this is just another example. So yeah, so these two figures here are going to go on a real fun little diorama. So I'll get them painted up over the next week or 10 days or 2 weeks or however long it takes, and then we'll start putting it together. So I spent some time thinking about how I'm going to arrange the cemetery and what the next steps are going to be in this build, and I've just done a bit of a sketch which I thought I'd show before I start to actually do any making, where I'm going to put walls and how I'm going to lay it out and the technique I'm going to use for those walls. I've decided to do two types of walls. Over this side here, where the lines are a bit squigglier, I'm going to build up a stone wall, and I'm going to do that in layers using a small smear of PVA, and then hand place stones, let that dry, put some more PVA, more stones, do 4 or 5 courses like that. So it's going to take a little bit of time, but the results and the effect will be fantastic. And then these straighter ones, I'm going to use XPS, and I'm going to make them a slightly more modern looking wall. So it's going to be from newer to older, as I've said. That's my kind of idea. It's going to be it's going to have lots of variety in it. Then I'm going to have some like little paths leading from a gate here. That's where the main entrance is going to be. So I might do some pillars there, and I might do some fallen down walls, or I might even continue this wall with another gate over here. I'm not sure, but I'm going to do little piles of rubble, some trees, and then a graveyard in all of the other areas. So I showed you all the printed stuff that I was going to do. Here is all of the gravestones that I printed out. So I've got things like a cenotaph, so I'd be able to put that down and have that as quite a prominent grave. I've printed out quite a few of these. I'm probably going to make more grave around this church, so I don't need to put everything on this, but I've got some really cool ones like this one I particularly like. It's a really nice looking thing. And this one as well is pretty cool as well. So I'm going to make use of as many of these as I can manage, both on this and on the church base. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. I will show you how I go about starting to build up these layers in the next segment. The other thing that I'm going to start on is for the actual church part. I'm going to start to use the Sarissa tile system to not the Sarissa tile system. That's this. The Sarissa tiles to do the roof. So I will again in the next but one segment I'll show you how I go about doing that. In terms of the actual body of the church, what I'm going to do, and again this will be in a very I'll be doing very soon, so I want to get this started. I'm going to render the church with my PVA and grout mix, and then I can paint and finish it off. Now I do need to think about what I'm going to do inside. This is one of the tower sections, so I do need to think about what I'm going to do inside. I might do air dry clay, very thin air dry clay as blocks, stone slabs. That might be how I do that. So yeah, but the first thing I'm going to do is start on the actual graveyard and start building up with stones these fallen down walls. So I'll get myself ready, put the camera a bit closer and show you how I'm going to do that. So as I said, this is going to be quite a painstaking process, but also quite enjoyable, I think. So what I've got is I've got some white glue, some PVA, and a very thin brush. And I will show you, I'll probably show a couple of layers of this. It'll take a little bit of time to do it. But the first thing you're going to do is you're going to place your PVA along the lines where you want your wall to be. And I have done this before. I can't remember whether I ever did this on camera, but I certainly have done a wall like this before, and it was fantastic. I really liked it. It took a while, but I really liked the effect. So quite excited to give it another go with my experience I've built up over the years now. Hopefully I'll get an even better result, but we shall see. So this is going to be the wall where it's actually still standing. I'm not going to do any of the fallen down parts of the wall yet. I'll do that as part of the groundwork when I come to actually put the grout mix on the base, and do the dirt and the trees and the grass and what have you. So yeah, just pick out where you want your first course of stones to be. There we are. Doesn't take long. This is what takes long. I now have all these stones up here, which are literally just sifted stones from some builder's sand, and I'm going to individually place stones on that. So this will take a little bit of time. You don't want it to be too big, but you don't want it to be too small. Some of these are too big. So this will take a little bit of time. So I'll pop some music on, and you can watch how long it takes. So once you've done that first one, I'm actually going to come along just with the brush, with the glue again, and I'm going to put a little bit of glue just between each of the stones, just to help keep them in place. I am a dramatically clumsy person at times, and so this will help to hold it all in place in case I knock it. So there we are. Right, that's that wall done. Let's do the next one. There we are. That clip's about 7.5 minutes long, so including the explanation. That didn't take too long. It's the next step that's going to be harder, so putting the ones on top. What I'm going to do now is let that completely go off, and I'll bring you back for the next step so you can see how that works. And then I'll build that up, as I said, to maybe 3 courses, maybe 4, I'm not sure. But next up, we will look at how we're going to do these walls. So I'm going to tidy this stuff away, let that dry very carefully, and make a start on these walls. So this is a great opportunity to use those scrap pieces of XPS that you think, why am I saving these? And then this is why, because this is going to be perfect. So I'm going to do a newer looking stone wall in these areas here. And what I've got here is some of the thin underfloor insulation that I use. And I'm going to cut that out to size and then mark in some stone shapes using my tool here, and then glue it down again using PVA. Now this has already been scored up on one side, actually been scored up on both sides, so that saves me a task. But if you're using this shiny XPS, you need to make sure that you use a wire brush and you mark it and score it, otherwise any paint will just come off it, because that shininess is designed to reject things being attached to it. So I will just you just literally rub it very quickly, and that's enough. So you just scrape across and you can see that you get lines in it, and that will mean that it's going to now actually take the paint we come to put on it later. This is not a very scientific build. I'm not really measuring, I'm making it up as I go along. So what I'm going to do is roughly hold that up against where I have done my pencil mark, and I've got myself a very tall wall. I don't want it to be that tall. This is 20mm scale, so I probably want that to be about 10 or 12 millimeters, so that it's about chest high or just around that, so I can make use of the very hard to see markings on my very dirty mat, and I've got myself a wall. So what we then do is you can use any sharp implement. I also sometimes use a pencil or an old Bic biro or whatever. But we're just going to mark in a couple of lines here and make it look a little bit like bricks. So pretty traditional method. I'm sure everyone's done this a lot of times, but that's how quick it is, just to quickly make yourself a little brick wall. There we are. So do that on both sides. That's that, and then using the PVA, do a thin line where you want to stick your wall, and then stick your wall down. And I will repeat that process for the other sections of wall that I want to do, and then this will go away to dry, to completely set. The next thing I'll do on this will be putting the next level of stones onto my stone wall area. So yeah, I'll get the rest of that done, and I'll bring you back when I come to the next step. So the next thing to do is to stick on the shingles or the tiles onto the roofs, and I've got these are also from Sarissa, and I like them loads. I mean, you can easily make your own tiles. It's very easy to do with cardboard, but it also does take time, and these are not expensive, but they're a real labour saver. And particularly if you want to do something a little bit more interesting, so you want to have some kind of herringbone shape, which if we have a look at the roof, you can see that it says 2 courses of the square, and then there's a decorative course that goes round, and I am going to follow that. So that's going to make that a lot easier, being able to make use of these pre-patterned ones. So you can see I am frugal, I save things, and I've got whole piles of short offcuts. I don't throw them away over the years. And the way that this works is you put a little bit of PVA glue onto the wood, onto the roof, and then stick down your tile on top of it, and it is as simple as that. Now do remember to start at the bottom because that is how tiles work, because water needs to flow down over them. So you want to start from the bottom. And I'm going to make use of offcuts on this bottom bit because it's going to have, as you can see, I'm going to need to be cutting away. This is where the roof will have the side of the chapel will sit here, so we will be looking to cut flush along here so that we can actually set the roof back in place. So I'll make use of a load of my spares and offcuts on this first one. That'll be enough for now, because all you do is you come along and literally just set your tiles in place like so. And then next to it you can see that's a half one. Don't mind that so much because this is where it's going to be a little bit obscured by the other roof coming in and joining. So we'll get this first course done, and then I'll bring you back and show you the next step. Done the first row. So what you do now, you see I made a little bit of a mistake here. Unfortunately it was very early doors when I started this, and Rosie woke up, it's my morning, and so I knocked it, and I didn't notice that I just came up that there's actually a little bit of a mistake here, which is a shame, but gives me an opportunity to show how I will recover that later. But let's move on and just finish off the rest of this roof. And what you're going to be doing is, if you notice I started with a whole one on this side. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a half one on the next row up. So I'll take one of these. I want a half on the left, but I don't want to keep the half on the right. And this is where some of the waste comes in, unfortunately, in this. And you overlap slightly with your glue, because each row of shingles is going to overlap slightly, and then lay that down over the top. And it's as simple as that. So it's a repetitive process. Now what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to do these square ones, and I'm going to do a third row of square ones. So I'll do 3 rows of square, and then I'll do the fancier ones of the next row, and then the rest of them I'll do square. So I'll get those done and just bring you back, show you what it looks like when it's completed. I also need to do the same on the other roofs. So this is one that goes there, and this is one that goes there. And then we also have the roof on the tower. So I've got quite a lot of roofing to do, quite a lot of these shingles to do. But this is a really nice little process. You don't have to do it all in one sitting. I could do a row now, go away, do another couple of rows, and it's something that you can just do in the time. And it also is something that you can work on while you're working on other parts of the building. So you don't need to feel pressured or rushed when you're doing this. Just make sure you don't make mistakes like I did down here. So yeah, I'll get the rest of these done and carry on camera with another part of the project shortly. Not sure when. Well, wouldn't you know, they finally turned up. This is the first order of resin that I ordered about a month or 6 weeks before I ordered the stuff that arrived a couple of weeks ago. But this arrived not without quite a lot of drama. DHL spent months, well, about 2 months, failing to clear this through customs, and I ended up employing a different customs agent to do their work for them, paid them myself, and then they tried to make me pay 1,000 lev, which is about 500 GBP or US dollars in storage fees for that. And I just told them to take it away. And went through a complaints procedure and had the storage fee zeroed, because frankly it was entirely their fault that it took so long, and it was absolutely immoral the way they acted. They even delivered the item after I told them I wasn't going to pay the storage fee and I wanted it to be looked at. They still tried to deliver this to me to try and force me to pay the 1,000 lev of storage. It was a disgusting experience, frankly, from beginning to end. They had a couple of very nice people I dealt with, but they weren't helpful, and the ultimate experience is I will be attempting to never use DHL again, because that really was, I mean, almost to try to deliver an item with an outstanding fee on it in an attempt to pressure you to pay when you said you don't want to is jumping over the barrel for me. So yeah, anyway, that's the story, but I've got it. It's quite badly damaged. Who knows what they've been doing to this while it's been in their storage. I'm umming and ahhing sending a picture of that to complain, because yeah, that's no good either. But as long as it works, I suppose it doesn't really matter, but that also annoys me a lot. These are metal tins. That wasn't an easy thing to dent, so I don't know what they've been doing. Anyway, it's here. maybe I'm going to get to the lake build. It hasn't happened over the Christmas break. I've been busier than I ever thought I would be over the Christmas break, but now I've got lots and lots and lots of resin. There's no excuse for me not finishing it, so I will attempt to get back to it in the next week or two and get that finished. So I've been left this all day, just been a busy day. I haven't managed to get back to my desk to hobby really. So now I'm going to come along and do the next level of the stones. And I'm not going to film all of it because it'll be a bit repetitive, but basically what we're going to be doing is running a bead of PVA across the top and then setting the stones in that, and just do this very methodically. Don't feel rushed. I mean, you can do this just literally a couple of stones at a time, quite isolated stones, so you don't feel like you're trying to balance things too much, or you can do what I do and just like go for it, because PVA does have some grab. Not enough there, so I'll put that one here. There we are. So it's just a case of kind of seeing how it goes. Same as it is with a real stone wall. You're going to be attempting to balance things, find the right stone to fill in the right gap, and be very, very patient. Now, if you're very clumsy, like I can be, as you can see, you might find it easier to use tweezers to get in to the close bits, or to drop them in close. Or you can pick them up. That was very lucky, did that better than I expected. You can pick them up with your paintbrush and drop them in place like I just did, looking like an expert but completely fluking it. Anyway, I'm going to crack on with this, and I'll probably do at least one more level after this tomorrow, and I'll bring you back when I get to the next stage for this build. You can see that these walls are in and they've dried very nicely. So yeah, the next stage is going to be to start to build up the terrain inside. So yeah, looking forward to that. Got lots of those little printed out gravestones to put in, and bushes and brambles and paths and all sorts of things to go on. So yeah, I'll bring you back when I get to that, but for now I'm just going to very carefully build this wall up. So I finished one side, and as you can see, I've got quite a lot of overhang over the edge of the roof, which I'm going to need to trim off, and that's how I do this. I don't try and cut everything to shape, to size, because that's going to be really difficult and you're not going to get it right. I am aware that I might need to put another course along the top, but I'm actually just going to build up the other side and decide that at the end, because I might do a cap instead, and not do more of these. So I'm going to quickly show you the couple of ways you can deal with this overhang. First of all is with strong scissors. So if you've got strong scissors, it's really easy to come along, cut them off. But the thing with that is it does have a little bit of a bite sometimes, and it can be not quite as accurate. So the other way is with a sharp knife, and you can literally use the edge of the roof to guide your knife. Problem with that one is if it's not glued down perfectly, then you risk pulling the tiles off, as I've done there, as you can see. So I'm going to have to glue that down again a little bit. But yeah, all you're looking at doing is trimming off the edges, and then apart from the one little mistake there, you're left with a roof which is complete. So I'm going to do the other side now, and yeah, finish it off. But I thought I'd just show you how I go about finishing off. I always leave an overhang, trim it down, and that's a good way of getting your roofs finished. This was quite difficult actually to do, to get that in as smooth and as nicely as I wanted. And I think I'm happy enough with it, but it's not quite perfect. But we're going to carry on because, well, I can't change anything now. What I'm going to be doing is painting on some brown grout mixed with a very little bit of grit, just to give it some texture, and PVA. If you want to know how I do this, there's a video in the description of every one, the link in the description of every one of my videos showing this technique, and I find this to be a really good way of getting a very, very subtle texture for the smaller scale stuff. Now obviously this isn't smaller scale, but I still want a very subtle texture on this one, so I use this a lot for my 20mm type things, but it also works well just if you're looking at giving a subtle colour. So again, I would normally recommend that you use an older brush when you're doing this, but because of the detail that I need to get, I'm actually using a relatively new brush. This is a very cheap brush from the local Maxi market, which is like a local supermarket type thing, So it's not a special brush, but it's new, so it's still got enough control so I can get in and not go over where I don't want to. So I'm going to paint this over the whole of it and then let that dry, and then I'll come in with some dry brushes, and I will be sure to bring you along when I get to the next stage. But this is rushing towards conclusion now, which is awesome, and I've already picked out the next miniature I'm going to do in this little series. Well, there we are. That's that was what I've got up to this week. A really fun week, like I say, and I have actually got a lot more hobbying than it appears because I spent so much time on the Battle Games of Middle-earth build, which is going to be coming out this Tuesday. I've actually still not finished it as I stand here on Sunday morning, so that gives you an idea of just how tight it is to finish that. Christmas has been a wonderful break, but it has also taken some of my hobby time away, and while I'm not complaining, it's now an interesting pressure to get that finished in time, but I'm sure I will, because I'm very, very close. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you made it this far, I really appreciate it. It's wonderful to have so many awesome viewers watching and commenting. It makes my day. Every time I reply to a comment, I'm very, very happy. So do say hello if you can. And as always, please do stay healthy, stay safe, and stay well.